right, let's do this.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the September 15th, 2022 meeting of the West Sacramento Planning Commission. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ms. Tanya.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Pretty specific.
Tonight's agenda is available on the counter along with request to speak cards. A reminder to everyone that request to speak cards should be completed and turned into the clerk prior to the completion of any staff presentation. For those speakers wishing to speak on items not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of this commission, please write item A on your card. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and televised, so all speakers, in order to be recognized, must be called on by the chair and come forward to the microphone. Speaking in public may cause some individuals to be uncomfortable, so everyone is asked to be professional and respectful at all times. Let's go ahead and get started with the general administration function, part 1. Presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of this commission. Are there no items?
No, we have no comments, yeah.
Okay. Correspondence and staff communications from the Planning Commission Secretary.
Yes, each commissioner should have received a memo regarding your item on the agenda tonight earlier today. So if you don't, we'll get you a copy, but Kathy will be elaborating on that for you tonight, since we know it did come out kind of late, but it was pertinent, so we want to make sure we get it to you as soon as we could. And that's all correspondence at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Telley. Disclosure of ex parte communications. Does anyone have anything to disclose tonight? Okay, seeing none. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Consideration and approval of the minutes from the August 4th, 2022 Commission meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a first motion by Vice Chair Lockhart and a second by Commissioner Sablon. Do we do a roll call vote for this now that we're back in person?
I believe so, yes.
That's not necessary for
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. So all those in favor, right? Sorry, guys, my first meeting back. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Awesome. Moving on to item number 5, public hearing regarding proposed text amendment to Plan Development 40 and a plan development permit for a mixed-use development at 1558 Jefferson Boulevard. Before we start with this item, I actually have to recuse myself because I live within 500 feet of the proposed project. So I'm going to hand it off to Vice Chair Lockhart, and I will be back.
Good evening, Vice Chair Lockhart and members of the Commission. So the applicant's proposed project includes the construction of 5 apartment units, which would be located above an 1,125 square foot restaurant and tuck under parking. It's at 1558 Jefferson Boulevard. And the item before you is an amendment to the PD 40 overlay. The request is to align the front setbacks with those shown currently in our zoning code. Just as a little background, PD 40 was originally improved in 1991, and how we look at things from a zoning perspective has changed greatly in the 30-plus years since then. Our zoning code now is a more urban zoning code, and as such, the alignment of the front setbacks from the 10 feet behind the right-of-way to 0 feet would put it in line with what is in our current zoning code. And we have approved several projects in places like Washington over the last several years with setbacks that are at 0 or close to 0. So this is consistent with things we have done in the past. The other aspect of this is one interesting little wrinkle of PD 40 is it does require that all projects in it be approved by the Planning Commission. Both the second-story apartments and the restaurant are actually permitted uses in the zone, but because of the way PD 40 is written, the Planning Commission still has to approve the project. These lots in PD 40, just to give you a little bit of background, they're all fairly shallow, and most of them are long. And so as you drive down Jefferson, which is probably our biggest major arterial, you get a lot of vacant lots, and they've been vacant for pretty much ever because there's a lot of challenges with developing on the lots in that configuration. So we're pleased to see someone taking on one of these lots that hopefully can get developed. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. In terms of the memo that you got, that was given to you of all the things I put in the staff report. The one thing I forgot was to give you the text for the change to the text amendment. And so the memo does contain that, and should you choose to approve that, I would just ask that you approve that language along with the rest of your approvals. The applicant is here in the audience. He does not have a presentation for you. However, if you have questions for him or his architect, they would be happy to answer those for you. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Allen, for the presentation. I'd now like to open it up for questions from the commission. Any commissioners wish to ask questions at this time? Commissioner Sablon.
Oh, can you just speak to the parking that's required for this project?
It does have the correct number of parking. Parking for apartments is based on the number of bedrooms. And
Yeah, I think, I guess we got the comment on the parking. I just wanted to clarify for the record on, I think it was actually hard to read online, but the A1-1 figure.
had to print it out today, and because the city system was not working good, and the copy that I have is very small. Sorry.
Yeah, or maybe it's a question I can say for the applicant.
I do know when I looked at it and calculated that they actually do have adequate parking spaces. I think they have 10 spaces, which was actually for it and the restaurant, because the restaurant's so small. They actually had, I think, 2 more than they were required
Yeah, I think
to provide.
Yeah, it's hard to read. So what I see is, I think 18 or 16? It is really hard to read. So I think I can save that for the applicant. if
Yeah, I
that's-
believe the applicant's architect is here as well.
Okay.
So when we get to the public hearing phase, it'd be a good topic for discussion.
And then just another question on the setback. Are there any safety concerns with the major thoroughfare going through, it is on Jefferson, so is there any concern for that?
It's going to be a right-in, and the traffic lane is going to loop around. So for instance, there'll be no backing out. So the in and out for the lot should be able to be done very safely by the people entering and exiting.
Okay, thank you.
Chair's prerogative to ask some questions too, following up on that safety concern. Now that it is 0 feet, how does that impact sidewalks and pedestrians and bicycle lanes?
Well, it's 0 feet from the back of the sidewalk, so it won't impact the sidewalk at all. And the bicycle lanes will not be impacted because they're further out in the street there.
Yeah, the sidewalk and bike lanes are all in the public right-of-way.
Okay,
So the setback is behind that.
thank you. Any additional questions from commissioners? Commissioner Hirsch.
Thanks, Vice Chair Lockhart. Just a couple questions for me, and I think maybe touching on some of Commissioner Sablon's questions, probably since we both served on the Transportation Commission together. Are there any bike parking requirements for this particular property?
They do have to provide a bike rack for the apartments. And it is shown, it's somewhere on the plans, but they do have bike parking provided.
Okay, and I appreciate that, Ms. Allen. I couldn't quite see where, so I just wanted to make sure I knew. And that's for the residential part of the property, but not necessarily the restaurant. There's no bike parking requirement if there were customers that wanted to take a bicycle to the restaurant?
That's correct.
Okay. And then can you elaborate on any noise sensitivity protections that are built into this design for the surrounding residences? I think I saw there was a concrete wall and some landscaping. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a concrete wall at the rear of the property that buffers between the residential uses and the complex. And also for the project for the residences up on the second story, because Jefferson is a major arterial, we'll be requiring that the windows have noise attenuating properties to reduce.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Esquivel.
Thank you. Along those same lines, I'm curious as to what the safety protections are with that. I mean, I drive down Jefferson to go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning. There's a lot of activity. When I'm done at the gym at 6 o'clock, 6:30, there's still a lot of activity. And so I'm wondering what are kind of the safety protections for that second floor and for the residents that are going to be in that area?
Safety protection, I'm not sure what you're asking, actually.
So we have that second floor that's going to be on top of the restaurant. Is that going to be gated? Is it?
It's not gated.
Commissioner Steger.
Thank you. One question that actually came up yesterday as I drove by a vehicle that had left the roadway just south of the freeway and struck a house. So in terms of, and I don't know if this is relevant to this conversation, but in terms of, again, of the safety of the customers of the restaurant, specifically on the first floor level, being that close to Jefferson, we all know how people drive on that road. Are there any possible provisions in terms of like pylons or something that would decrease the potential for a vehicle leaving the roadway at 55 miles an hour and going into the restaurant?
There is screening where the parking is that would offer some protection. There's nothing actually in front of the restaurant itself that would completely hinder any visibility for people to know that it's there if it was completely screened from the street.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of, like downtown has some provisions like that, right? Where they have these kind of small concrete pylons like on the footpath. To prevent
Like
vehicles.
a bollard
Bollards.
kind of
Is it-
thing.
yeah, I'm sorry, bollard. Anyway, that was, again, kind of a question or more of a concern in terms of getting rid of the setback and having that tendency for a vehicle to strike the building increase.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, buildings along Jefferson at this proposed in this sort of layout there are others that are existing like that. There's the former vet, I think it's an HVAC company now is over there, the tire shop, the Sail Inn, there's maybe even a couple others. So this is what they're proposing here in terms of being right along Jefferson is not out of the ordinary,
Sure.
for that area. And also what we're hoping is that as these areas start to fill in with more activity, we should be able to have an effect of slowing people down on Jefferson. Clearly, right now, people go way over the speed limit going down Jefferson, north and south. So, but I'm hoping the applicant and their designer are listening to some of your comments tonight and be able to respond to some of those from their own perspective as well.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the commission? I have one comment, just building upon what Commissioner Steger was saying, and you're right that there are existing businesses there, but is there a role that the city could play to make some safety improvements that would benefit the Jefferson corridor?
There are some things in the works along that. If you recall, when we were here at our last meeting, where we had another project on Jefferson, closer to 15th Street, there is that highway safety improvement grant, I believe it was. Well, they'll be doing some more median improvements along Jefferson to work on some of those illegal turning movements. As part of the Pioneer Bluff work, there's a lot of conceptual designs about additional medians, landscaping, lots of things that we really would like to do on Jefferson, not just to improve it aesthetically, but also safety-wise, because right now it's kind of this, free-for-all over there, kind of between 15th and Stone, and it's not optimal. So there are things in the works. I know that median work will be the first thing out of the chute, but there are additional improvements that we would very much have planned to do on Jefferson in this segment to hopefully improve upon it, especially as the area to the east in Pioneer Bluff starts to transition. There'll hopefully be a lot more opportunity for cross-pollination, and of course we have the Broadway Bridge that will come through there in the future. So there are a lot of things in the works. They're not going to happen immediately, but there will be improvements in that area. I think it's important. Just, for my own travels going through there, like how fast do you want me to go down on that when I have people on my tail? I understand what you're saying. There are things in the works, but the first thing will be with those median improvements that we talked about at our last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Tilley. Any additional questions before I open up the public hearing? Okay, this time I'd like to open up the public hearing. I know, Ms. Allen, you said the applicant didn't have a formal presentation, but I'd still like to offer the opportunity for the applicant to present if desired. No? Okay. If you please, welcome.
Hi, Greg Baldery, architect. just to shoot from the hip. The walls along the existing west and south are about 4'8" in height. Then structural, but we're going to be removing and replacing those.
Oh,
and they'll be-
pardon, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that for people watching, that the microphone's okay.
Okay.
Is the microphone, is the volume okay? Ms. Flores?
Can you try just speaking
Hello?
closer to the
Good.
mic? Yeah, perfect.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry to interrupt.
So the existing masonry walls are thin. They're non-structural that are along the south and the west side of the property. So we'll be removing and replacing those with at least 6 to 6'8" in height. Parking-wise, we do exceed the minimum requirement. I thought there was going to be a video presentation, but I'd be happy to look at any of the plans that you have. And
Commissioner Sablon.
I believe this is the A1-1. If you can,
so the property line is about 2 feet behind back of walk. The walk is about 5'8" in width, so to curb, safety-wise, we were around 7'8". So rather than going from memory, yeah, so we have 16 provided stalls, 11 and a half stalls are required. Safety-wise, as far as the second floor element, the stair access is on the west side. It's on the back side of the property. There really isn't any. This is going to be up clear. It's probably going to be the 12-foot height as far as the floor goes, and so there's not going to be any access for somebody walking by. For a portion of the parking lot, as we're required to screen, there is a decorative tube steel and lath, which is also going to be a landscape screen. And you can see that on the elevations on A3.1, and then also on the ACE color elevations. So the stair access is on the back side. It's on the west side. Yeah. And I do not recall the rest of the questions.
Okay, well,
It sounded like
at
they
this
were
time.
similar, but go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you for making those clarifications. At this time, we will ask the commission for their questions, so we'll have that opportunity. Do any commissioners have questions? Commissioner Hirsch?
Thanks, Vice Chair Lockhart, and thank you, Mr. Baldry. If you could help point out as well, my question was about bicycle parking, because I understand PD 40, pretty shallow lot, not a lot of space for car parking, but since this is located in a residential neighborhood, it's a
Yes.
great mixed-use concept, and hopefully it will get a lot of people in the surrounding residences to come out who maybe feel comfortable not having to drive,
Sure.
especially if there's limited parking. but
Sure.
They could take their bikes. And Ms. Allen touched on this, but maybe you may know as well. Looking at the current design, how many bike parking spots are there right now? And are they primarily designed at this moment just for the residences or for restaurant customers as well?
There would be one allocated for the restaurant, and then there was a few allocated for the, I think it's one each apartment,
And is that for, just to clarify, for bicycle parking or for car parking?
bicycle parking.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there'd be
and I
one
will-
bicycle spot for each
I
of
can
the
go back and
five.
look as far as number of required bicycle stalls per parking stall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I
You're welcome.
follow up on that, on whether they're all located within the same area, or are there differentiated spots for them?
There would be some located near the trash enclosure, and the other ones would be located north is to the right. So this would be in the northwest corner by the restaurant.
So it'd be all together, whether the residential or whether they're for restaurant use? Or are they separate?
Separate.
Not a question, but thank you so much for answering that safety question that I had when it came to the stair access and it being on the west side of.
Are there additional questions from the commissioners to the applicant? Commissioner Sablon?
I just wanted a little clarification on the bike parking. I'm trying to look at the figure here, but,
Yeah, they actually didn't make it on here.
okay,
Yeah, but they are planned.
okay. And then, was it one bike rack for the restaurant and one for the residents, or just a single parking?
Two total. Yeah.
But it will accommodate more than one bike?
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Seeing no further questions from the commission, I'd like to open it up for public comment. Secretary Flores, do we have any public comment?
We did receive an public comment via email, which was provided to all the commissioners. But other than that, we have no public comments.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to close the public hearing. Ms. Allen, would you like to make any clarifications from the conversation we've had so far, or should I open it up for deliberation?
Just that we'll make sure that the bike parking is to code, so it will meet the city code.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. This time, the commission may deliberate. Any commissioners wish to comment at this time? Commissioner Hirsch?
Thanks, Vice Chair Lockhart. Well, again, thank you to the staff and to the applicant for answering our questions. I know we had a lot as a planning commission tonight. I think that overall, PD 40 is a challenging area, given the shallowness of the lots. There's a reason that this particular property has been vacant for so long. So looking at this project before us today, what I see is 5 additional housing units that could come to our city, an additional dining location that could come to our city with all of the job opportunities that come with that. And so I am inclined to look favorably on this project. I think that it is important that anything in PD 40 has to strike a balance, given the shallowness of the lots, to be mindful of the residences that are adjacent to the property. And from what I've heard tonight from the applicant and from staff, it sounds like when it comes to noise, there is sufficient improvements actually in noise protections when it comes to traffic along Jefferson, instead of the existing 4-foot narrow, older wall. This project would have a taller, thicker, and more modern wall to help shield the residences on the other side of Jefferson from this project. When it comes to landscaping, there will be increased landscaping as well to mask some of the noise from Jefferson as part of this project. When it comes to the 0-foot setback, I know that it's different, which is why we're considering the amendment to PD 40 today. But I think that Ms. Allen is quite right, that PD 40 was made at a time over 30 years ago now, where there was a little bit of a difference in terms of architectural design, in terms of pedestrian traffic. And so I'm comfortable, given that this proposed change is similar to what's already under the general code for commercial zones, when it comes to the 0-foot setback amendment. And when it comes to the project before us itself, I'm comfortable as well that there is sufficient noise protection, that there is sufficient safety protections. You know, my one concern, because I did pay very close attention to the public comment that came in, is the potential for traffic impacts on the area, which is why I wanted to make very sure that there was sufficient opportunities for people to come to this site, not just by car, but by foot or by bicycle. Because again, the great thing of a mixed-use project like this is that hopefully it activates the surrounding neighborhood and attracts residents from the surrounding neighborhood, and therefore they don't have to drive. They don't have to take their cars and crowd up the streets around it. So as long as the bicycle requirements on this project conform to the city requirements, I myself have no concerns with this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirsch. Any further comments? Commissioner Sablon?
I think Commissioner Hirsch touched on most of my comments, and just want to echo his comments, and also speaking to what Mr. Tilley said about the long-term vision for Jefferson. This development will help that, as the Locks development comes in, this will play a part. We want those lots developed, and I look forward to seeing this go forward and actually be developed.
Seeing no further comment, again, I do want to thank the applicant for bringing this project forward. I've lived in West Sacramento for 20 years, and the entire time that I've lived here, that has been a vacant lot. So it's nice to see this part of the city become revitalized. I think Commissioner DeAnda said at the last meeting that this is the gateway to our city. And so I think it's important for new visitors as they're traveling and visiting our town for the first time that they see development that it shows West Sacramento growing. So thank you for bringing that forward. This time I'd entertain a motion from any of the commissioners.
So I move to approve with the condition that the bike parking is reflected in the plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Sablon. Is there a second?
I could second that.
And their motion includes the PD text amendment as well?
Yes.
Let the record show that Commissioner Sablon made a motion recommending the staff recommendation with the amendment as provided in the memo this afternoon. Commissioner Esquivel seconded. Madam Secretary, will you open it up for a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Sablon,
Aye.
Commissioner Hirsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Esquivel,
Aye.
Commissioner Steger,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lockhart.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Any interested party may appeal the decision of the Planning Commission in this matter to the City Council by filing a written appeal with the City Clerk within 15 days of tonight's action, and that appeal must be accompanied by the appropriate filing fee. They make me read that.
Shall we welcome Commissioner Berliner back to the meeting and allow her to resume the chair?
Yes, we can retrieve her if anyone wishes to do so.
Welcome back.
All right. So, moving on to the administrative function, part 2. I did want to, let's start there. Any commissioner communications? Mr. Tilley? Oh, sorry.
I wanted to share that the APA Sacramento Valley Section Chapter had an event in West Sacramento. So it's nice to see planners from the region visit our city. We had a lovely time at Bike Dog and Baker Family Wines. And so nice to hear from fellow planning staff and those in the private industry compliment our city on how it's growing. So just thought I'd pass those kudos along to our city.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lockhart. That sounds awesome. Does anyone else have anything to say? Mr. Tilley?
Yes, briefly. I've received some communications from a few of the commissioners about our number of cancellations, that we have been having, which admittedly is very much higher than has been typically in the past. And so there is no, secret or special reason, for that. We just don't have a lot of our bread and butter kind of projects, in the door right now. The commissioners will recall we were having cannabis projects, at every meeting there for a while. Those have kind of stalled, for quite a while. COVID has definitely slowed some of the big, master plan kind of multi-year projects. So it is unusual for us to be canceling as many meetings as we have been, but it's just truly that we didn't have anything for you. for those meetings. As I say that, right now, we are scheduled to meet both times in October. So stay tuned for that, but right now we are scheduled for both of those meetings, so please circle those dates on your calendar if you haven't done so already. But otherwise, as I said last time, it's just great to see everyone and see everybody actually meet each other, in many cases for the first time, and be in this room sometimes for the first time. So thank you, commissioners, for another good meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Tilley. I do have one thing I want to say. So this is obviously, this may not be obvious. This is my first meeting back in person. I was out of town for the first in-person meeting, and I want to say thank you to city staff for doing such a great job over the past 2+ years as we sort of kind of, figured our way through the Zoom meetings and figuring out how to run these meetings completely virtually. One of the things that we learned over COVID was that having the Zoom interactions and having the Zoom meetings provided a space for people who were unable to attend in person, who were unable to provide public comment prior to 4 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. the day of the meeting, but were still able to engage in these meetings. And this is not a criticism of city staff, but I really hope that there is a way that we can as a city, for planning commission, all the commissions, city council, find a way to continue that engagement. I think it's so important, and I think it's so important to have that level of engagement and just to see the community come out, whether or not it's in support of projects, just to see them be active and have their voices heard. And I know that there's nothing I just hope that we can figure out a way to do something like that in the future, to give everyone an opportunity to speak when they're not able to necessarily speak in public or be able to write before 4 o'clock on the day of the meeting. So that is it. Thank you. With that, I guess we'll adjourn this meeting. All right, let's rock, guys.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, sorry. Forgetting we're not on Zoom.
Second.
All right. Do I need to vote to adjourn? Oh, I didn't think so. Okay, great. Let's adjourn.
You have to hit the gavel.